When did you realize that your white parent should have never have had children of color? I'll go first. My mother has 3 children of color. I'm the youngest, and the like turning point, like a lot of stuff that's happened when I was younger, I didn't realize it was problematic until I got older. But this one hit me straight in the face. My sister, her kids, and my mom and I, we were on our way to go see my grandmother. My mom's radio station went to commercial. I changed it to the hip hop station of our town. She then proceeds to slam her hand on the radio to try to change it and said, and I quote, "I'm not listening to that nigger shit."
This is a great question that I feel like needs to be talked about more. I would say I first realized when my mom told me that her grandparents wrote her a letter when she started dating black men saying that she should not be in an interracial relationship and they were going to disown her and she shouldn't have mixed kids. And I distinctly remember her saying, you know, I think my grandparents were right. So obviously that shit hurt because I took that as, so you regret having us. And she didn't give any explanation. I just remember being like, why would you say that? And crying. Other times I realized was when I had to consistently stand up for myself as a child against racism from my own family, and she would tell me to keep the peace and stop starting arguments instead of telling them to not be racist.
Okay, so I'm adopted from Ethiopia. I grew up in a pretty big family. 7 of my siblings are also adopted from other countries, and we have 2 white moms. And so there was this one time I was in 11th grade and I was sitting on the couch. My mom comes in and she goes, "Please don't be offended by what I'm about to ask you, but like, I really want to know." And I'm like, okay, what is it that you want to know? Then she proceeds to ask me, why is it that you feel so strongly for the Black Lives Matter movement when technically you aren't a part of the group? And I was confused. So I go, what do you mean by that? And she says, well, you don't have ancestors that were slaves and you're also adopted from another country and you have a white parent. And then she goes on to say, and if reparations were even going to be a thing, you wouldn't be getting any. So why do you fight so hard? And honestly, after that, I'm not even going to lie, like my heart hurt a little bit because I just couldn't understand why my mom, regardless of her race, would not get that.
When did I realize that my white parents should have never adopted black children? I realized it when my mom didn't understand why I wanted to join a historically black sorority. I learned it when I thought about all the times I was told that my parents don't see color. I learned it when my parents' biological son / my brother told me that I only got my scholarship to college because I'm black. And I learned it when I remembered growing up that when I would get in trouble, my parents would tell me to shut my cotton-picking mouth. So yeah, if you're gonna have children of color, you need to educate yourself a lot better because now I'm suffering from trauma and trying to heal. And it's not fair whatsoever for any black child to have to go through these things.
First off, I love my family. I'm so grateful for being adopted and having a second chance at life. There is no doubt about that. But I think there are some things that they really should have reconsidered saying and doing for their children. So my adopted parents already had 2 biological children and then they adopted 3 black kids from Africa, my sister and I, and then a 3rd one from Liberia. You know how when people have babies to save a marriage? That's kind of how I felt when it came to us being adopted. It did not work. But like a lot of my past videos that people see, none of us know anything about our homeland. Our culture, no connections to family, meh. But my biggest problem was the fact that my dad always seemed to use us as trophies. Whenever we got introduced to somebody, there was always this weird long moment where he was just telling the entire story of how he went to go get us. When high school came, all he did was boast about my black brother because he was in football. Never boasted about his biological children. When asked why he adopted kids, his answer was always, I just wanted to add in some color.
There's a time that I should have realized it and the time that I actually realized it. The time that I actually realized it when I was watching a TikTok of also a person who was mixed, and she said that her mother had set her down on the counter of a black beauty salon, said, I have no idea what I'm doing, I need help, and I need somebody to educate me. And she took the initiative to get the information that she needed to properly take care of her daughter's hair. My mom never did that. My mom was never wrong, and she always knew the answer. But when I reached around 9, she started berating me that I wasn't taking care of my hair properly, and it was always a mess. It was too frizzy, the curls were wild, I always had it down, I was never putting it in styles or anything. I just didn't know what she was talking about. She would put me in front of these mountains of hair products and tell me which one I needed like I was supposed to know. I didn't. She kept taking me to white hairdressers who always looked at my frizz and looked lost.
My white parent was my father, and he married twice, both to black women, and he has 6 black children between both of them. I'm the oldest, so I have seen the most and been through the most. And when I was younger, I played the violin, and I was about 12, 13 years old, and I bought this CD. It's of 2 black brothers from New York and play the violin. I thought that was really cool because at that age, I had never seen a black violinist before. And he came into my room, and he picked up the CD, and he looked at it, and he said, "Oh, what's this? Niggers on Strings?" So, that's when I realized.
Okay, so I'm mixed, but I have 2 racist white parents that should not have a child of color because I'm adopted, but luckily I'm the only one that they adopted. So I was in the store with my mom, who has said the majority of racist things, and she pointed to these, like, little brown candies and said, like, me and my friends used to call these N-word hard R toes. And I'm like, I was, like, 6, so I was like, why are you telling me that you and your friends used to pretend these candies were the severed toes of black people? That's not a chill thing to say. You're a black kid. You're a half-black kid. So that's when I was like, I don't feel great about you being my mom.
When she started weaponizing the police against us. So, for example, this past weekend we were at my cousin's wedding with our white side of the family, and my brother and my mom got into an argument, and she goes, "Well, do you want someone to call the police on you?" Or, he was being loud. And she does this knowing that he's had traumatic experiences with police officers, like he was held at gunpoint. And the day of my dad's passing, he was tackled by police. So I think it's really sick when she does this, inexcusable. And it's not the only thing that she does, but it's the one that sticks out most in my mind.
When I was about 13, that's when Trayvon Martin was killed. Black Lives Matter was thoroughly talked about on the news, and my dad watches Fox News. We argued for days, and our relationship was never the same. He talked about how violent and aggressive black men are, and he's always made minor comments, but that was the turning point.
I just wanted to point out that 90% of these stories all have the same common denominator: white mothers.
Just different. You know you B-E-A-U-T-I-F-U-L-E